Welcome to The Bridge, a podcast for dental professionals featuring the insights and expertise of fellow dental professionals. Let's welcome our host, Stephen Kuza.
Hello, Bridge Dental podcast listeners. Welcome back to another episode. We're really lucky to have from Shoreline Dental in California, Dr. Cory, well, not doctor, but Cory Ritzau, right?
I get confused a lot with that, but I do say that I'm married to the best doctor, but not a doctor myself. So
okay, well, that's a good way to start, a good intro to start. We're not re-recording that intro. I like it. Well, thanks for joining us, Cory. We appreciate the time you're going to take today. And we're going to walk through, for those of you listening, today's episode. Cory is the CEO of Shoreline Dental and helps run the business with his wife, Kristen. And they have some great solutions on how to run your private practice, hiring solutions. And I think that's going to be super relevant right now, Cory, because I still hear from a lot of dentists they're having trouble keeping and finding staff. So look forward to that conversation today. I'm Steve Kuza, your host. For those of you who don't know me, I am your resident financial advisor across the country for dentists. And Cory, let's kind of dive right into it. Why don't you introduce us, where you're at today, and let the listeners know kind of where Cory and Shoreline Dental is helpful today.
Sure. So I'm literally recording from the she shed that I built my wife a few years ago. It's our refuge from our two wonderful but terrorizing children, so that we can run to the backyard and it's a safe space from being bothered by them. So it's one of our few productive areas within our household.
I love it.
But business-wise, we are a growing practice now with a couple different offices. And so I'm the CEO over about 40 different people. We have several doctors, I think upwards of 9 hygienists or so. And, we've doubled our team in the last 2 years, or even less than that in the last 18 months or so, as we've opened a second office and just continued on our growth trajectory. Big thing on my plate right now is we own a piece of land that we are just getting through the city permitting process in California, which is extra fun. So we're going to be constructing a nice new headquarters type facility here in our hometown, which hopefully will get started soon and be done in about 18 months.
So it sounds like you got nothing going on.
Just a lazy weekend. Ran carpool this morning and come back and watch golf the rest of the day.
Right. Well, look, that's so cool. So explain to us, and that way the listeners can get an understanding, the dynamic between you and your wife. That she's practicing, you seem to be operating. So explain to us the dynamic and how that's working, or how you guys started to develop that a little bit.
Yeah, the joke I like to tell is people asking what's coming up on 14 years of marriage is, have you ever considered divorce? And they say, no, in 14 years, we've never considered divorce. Now, murder, that's a different story. And so working with your spouse can provide some challenges. But to be honest and truthful is that my wife is incredibly gracious. It's her name on all the building, all the marketing materials, and I get to kind of play the behind the scenes.
Okay.
But when we practice in her hometown, we practice within a few blocks of where her grandmother bought her first home in 1961. So,
oh, wow.
My kids are now 4th generation. They go to the same elementary school that their grandma went to. So it has a very like hometown kind of small town feel for us. But my wife is the mascot. She's sort of the beauty and the brains and the face of the operation. And I get to kind of play the business role. So we started de novo about 10 years ago. Okay. And the good thing is that, my wife admits that, the business component of that is not something that she's probably better at it than she will admit, but she doesn't have a natural interest in it. So from the very beginning, from the ground up, there was a clear division in the roles that we were in, the hats that we were wearing within the organization. And we both did what we were good at and also what we enjoy to do. And when there's only 3 of us, literally when we started de novo, it was her, a dental assistant, and myself. You do a lot of different things, but now as you grow and hopefully you delegate more and more responsibilities, we take on a lot of things. And I think the thing that's really helped us is my wife doesn't have a lot of ego in the process. So not being a dentist, I have a fresh perspective in terms of how to run or set up a dental office. And I'll often come to her and say, like, why are we doing it this way? And she doesn't get defensive. And oftentimes she can explain why things are done a certain way and set up a certain way, and that there's logic behind it that I might not know or understand clinically. But she's very humble and doesn't get defensive when I say, well, could we do something a different way to improve our patient flow or customer service or what that looks like, and not necessarily do it just like every other office down the street. And it's nothing earth shattering, but it's like, can we rearrange things to be a little bit more efficient, a little bit more customer centric in those ways?
Are you implying that dentists like to micromanage? No,
never.
So, well, let's put a bookmark there, because obviously for the dentists that are listening, especially would love to kind of maybe hear operationally how things are running, maybe some, trial and error stuff that you guys have accomplished and success stories. But if we go back, what's interesting. So how did you end up working with Kristen on this? Were you thinking about going down a different path entirely, and she was going to go down the dentistry path, or how did that come about?
Yeah. So without getting into too much detail, so I had my own career. I actually had a ministry career as well.
Okay.
And then I was doing some sales on this. I was sort of bivocational at various times. So I played some sales roles and worked within the church. And that's where I was trained in terms of my undergraduate and graduate degrees.
Okay.
But we were in a different city, and some things happened on a personal level that we decided we were going to move back to Kristen's hometown. And that's where we wanted to raise our family and kids and whatnot. And when we do that, we're sort of starting from zero. And it was to the point where we wanted to partner together and do something together kind of as a couple. And so that's sort of the journey that we took. So I have some sales background. I worked in downtown LA and sold sort of building, billboards, wallscapes, those types of advertising and large print materials, and then worked in a church setting as well.
Okay.
But that's sort of when we kind of push reset on life and move back to her hometown. It was, okay, I could go any number of different directions here, but let's go ahead and make sure if we're going to push all our chips in with what we're doing with this de novo practice, I'm going to be a part of it and try to make sure it gets off the ground and gets successful.
Well, so you went from three employees to two owners, right? It's like three employees.
Well, we had one employee technically, and there were three people. Yeah.
And now you're 40 plus and growing. So obviously there's a journey there, but so what's interesting to me is this, I talked to many dentists who are running both. They're the CEO, COO, sure. They're the main dentist. Where do you think I don't want to call it like you have an advantage, but where do you think you brought the advantage in your ability to just focus on the growth or the business aspect, and then her ability to focus on dentistry?
Obviously time is a huge thing, right? Right. If I'm sure dentists feel like if they could clone themselves, how much more they could do. But I think that some of them, if they felt like they cloned themselves, they would just double their chair time. And so for me, like that wasn't even an option. Yeah. So I always had to consider, well, how am I, and not that I get competitive with my wife or anything, but like, how am I going to add as much value to this practice, to this venture, as she is? Because she can sit there and, produce, almost a couple $1 million in dentistry. So how am I going to be able to add that type of value? And, my wife is fantastic, a little bit of a control freak like most dentists are. I'm a little bit the other way. I like to do what I can do, know my strengths, and then delegate and find other people. And so for me, it was all about finding people, training them up to the level of expectation that I had for them, and then I could release that on. And so all the various hats that I've worn, and I've literally done it all, where I was the solo front desk person. So I know how to do all of the granular work with patients, do the treatment planning, call the insurance agents and be like, talk to me like I'm 7, because I need to learn these types of things. So I know all the granular level and having the time to be able to do that. Because even in our first couple of years, we're only open 2-3 days a week. So I'm patient facing for those 2 days, but the other days it's building systems, it's learning, it's, taking the time to actually get to know a lot of that. And I think for dentists, when they graduate, it's right into so much to learn about how to catch up chairside. Coming out of dental school, that's only, makes you a fraction of the dentist that you're going to become to be successful. So there's so much they have to learn clinically, let alone all the business component elements that it takes to run a successful practice. So both of us were in that learning phase of our careers. And then once we had a handle on what it took to be successful, it's about finding people and training them up to a level of productivity and expectation that you feel satisfaction with.
Now, do both of you have this vision for growth, right? From 3 to 40, or were one of you more driving that than the other? Because, some people are wired to just like, look, we're good at, this is great. I got 5 ops. I just like what we're doing. Yeah. But some people want to keep going.
It's a great question. I'm definitely more forward thinking. Sometimes I drag my wife kicking and screaming.
Okay.
We opened a second office, and it was to the point where we were at such capacity in our current space that there's only so much we could do, and still had people wanting to come and see us. But we knew the larger practice that we're hopefully going to open 18 months from now was still a ways away. So it was, all right, well, we have a couple different options. But it was, all right, well, why would we deprive other people the opportunity to experience what we have to offer? And for my wife to put her own ego out of the way and think that it's not just about her that creates that experience, but it's that we can train and develop other doctors and other team members to create that same type of patient experience. That's not just the fact that they're seeing her specifically. So, that was a decision that we decided to make. Originally, it was out of the pressure that she felt as the solo practitioner, that if she wanted to take a vacation, if she wanted to get sick, that all of a sudden 7 staff members couldn't come into work, or we were paying them when we're not working or whatever.
Right.
And, it was out of that pressure that, anxiety started to set in or whatnot. So it was like, well, let's go all in, and let's think about what would it need to ramp this up and bring somebody else on, so that if we want to travel, if we need to do some of these other things, that we're not having to close the whole building down and force people to take vacation when we take vacation and those types of things. And so it was a ramp up in that regard. And that's a great day. I always say, like, the best day that we have in our practice is when we're taking vacation and we're getting daily production reports at the end that showed that we still made money.
Yeah.
And so that was probably the best day of the practice. And now it's just about, okay, can we do that at scale? And can we bring people in and still maintain the same level of care and customer service that we had when there was only 5 of us? And it's hard to do because, you feel we're control freaks, right? And so we think that we're the only ones that can do that if we don't have eyes on it. But that's something that you got to set aside and put your ego aside and realize, no, there's people out there that have similar levels of pride and investment in this process that we do, and willing to hold them accountable and not necessarily ride them and become micromanagers, but invest some level of trust in those people. And when they see that you're putting trust in them, then they're going to want to live up to that if you find the right people.
Yeah. If I'm hearing you correctly, it's just, there is a moment of faith and growth, but like, all right, we're going to grow. Let's build out some more ops. Now we're going to grow. Let's hire more people. All right, now we're going to grow. Now let's actually hand off duties that bring us revenue. And that's not easy. That's not easy to do. I mean, to give that up, that control.
Yeah. And you realize so many mistakes you make along the way. So like, we've been lucky. The first associate we ever hired, she's still with us.
Okay.
So that's good news. But you don't even realize how many mistakes you make. And I talked to so many doctors that, I tried the associate thing and it didn't work. And it's like, well, okay, but like, did you find the right person? Like,
Right.
did you invest in them properly? And so, we realize, now that we're on associate 4 and 5, where it's like, okay, well, there are things that we're putting in place to make those people successful and investing in them in ways that we should have done from the beginning, but at least now we've learned. And so we're better at that process. And we have a little bit more faith in that process. So we don't hover over them nearly as much as we did the first one, because it was like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm trusting them to see our patients. And so we gotta, we just have been able to take a step back and have a little bit more faith in our people and our process.
Yeah. It's, I can almost imagine you, Cory, like you're on the vacation, you get that first production report. You're like, see, honey, I do provide value.
For sure. I mean, and there's some times where that can kind of backfire, when you're on vacation and all of a sudden the world ends at the office and something breaks and it's like, see, I told you we shouldn't have ever left. But for the most part, the direction that we've taken and the time that we're able to take off and leave things be is definitely the right decision that we feel we've made over the last few years.
I can feel that energy. And so let's skip over to understanding how you were able to double your staff in the last 18 months. I could tell you, like, every dentist I talk to is like, how do I, find, train, develop, people in every role. Right.
Yep.
So walk us through kind of where you're taking either your business model and how you've been able to grow and help some of the listeners understand that.
Sure. So, we noticed this pre-pandemic. Obviously the pandemic accelerated a lot of this, but with, since 2008, by and large, the unemployment rate just has continued to shrink, from, depending on your community, 8-9% down to 3-4%. And so we started to notice this as early as like 2019, where a lot of the tactics that we used to take for hiring were not yielding the same type of results that we were hoping for. And it was, we call it kind of the post and pray method, which is you find somebody else. Back then it was like you find somebody else's Craigslist ad for a dental assistant that sounded good, and you just copy it and change a few adjectives and a few facts and then repost it yourself and hope that your inbox starts to fill up. And by and large, that still remains the tactic that most dental offices have. It's not Craigslist anymore. I would venture to guess most people are probably using something like Indeed for their hiring process. But it's literally like we're all just kind of sheep. Just, all right, I see an ad that I think looks and sounds good. Let's go ahead and make that a version of that our own, and then hope that our inbox just starts to yield. And then all of a sudden we throw up our hands and go, why isn't this working anymore? It worked 4 or 5 years ago. So I worked with my executive director, Emily, who is now the co-author of the book that I'll share with you a little bit about, which is like, hey, what's going on? Like we need to go back to the drawing board and start to, look at from scratch what some of the processes are that we have in place with how we're going to get people into our hiring funnel so that we have a few more people to choose from, so that we're literally not just somebody responds to an ad and we're so desperate that we're just saying yes right from the get-go, and we know this person is not set up to provide the same level of care and service that we've come to expect to provide for our patients. So, the first thing that we do, and so we wrote a book. It's called Build Your Dental Dream Team, and buildyourdentaldreamteam.com is where we sell that. Okay.
So people can buy it direct on that website.
Yeah. So it's more of a hiring solution than a book, but yes, you can buy it directly on the website. So the solution is more of a workbook style, which is literally, if you buy it, it will help, and you give it to if you're the dentist yourself, or you have an office manager that's helping you through some of the hiring processes, it'll allow you to literally walk through and revamp your whole hiring process, almost like a workbook style. Right. And then we supply it with all of a digital vault of all of the forms and copy that we use for all of our hiring systems, so that people can take this and put it into play in their office and start to hopefully yield some better results for finding, getting, and training better team members.
Well, we just had a quick note there. What you said in the beginning really stuck with me. It's like, you talked about your ability to free up time so that she can continue practicing and you can run the business side of it. And dentists are always looking for more time. And so that led into, I don't want to call it lazy hiring practice, but that's all they had time to do. It's
Correct.
like, all right, that looks good. Copy, paste, post. Hopefully we find somebody. I'm not finding anybody. And then it's more of just a frustration thing. And so you're like, all right, we'll just deal with what we have. And it's incalculable how much money that costs.
Oh yeah. I mean, we try to in some of the courses that we teach, and it's astronomical.
Yeah.
But people don't really see it that way. And then what happens is it becomes a vicious cycle where, you finally hire somebody, you don't really have the bandwidth to actually train and onboard them properly. Right. Then you get frustrated with them and they're frustrated with you because the communication level and training isn't there. Just because you're so backed up, you're so desperate, you throw them right in chair side, or you say, go start cleaning teeth. And then all of a sudden you're frustrated with them, they're frustrated with you. You decide after 6 weeks, it's not going to work. And you start back at square one all over again. And it just becomes this vicious cycle where you're never able to get out of it. So, we talk about taking a step back. And if dentists don't necessarily have the bandwidth themselves to do it, that's okay. But like our solution is meant to put in the hands, spend a little bit of time on it as a doctor, but then you can put it in the hands of an office manager or somebody else in your practice. And then they can actually start to implement these systems on your behalf to yield better results. Because the thing is like we want to delegate, and then we have expectations of people without actually giving them any proper training or education or advice, yet we have certain expectations of them. And that's not fair of them either.
Right.
So it's like, you need to find me a good hygienist. Well, that wasn't what I was hired for. You've never taught me. I don't really know what I'm doing. So I'm just going to kind of wing it here.
Right.
Not any good at it. Well, if you spend a little money, you block out some time for them to actually learn it, then that's going to be fair for them to be able to start to achieve some of those results. So that's sort of the intent behind this training system, is to people don't really even know what they're doing out there, is what we find. And so
with regards to recruiting?
Yes.
Okay.
So we give a lot of practical tips and some advice on how to attack that. So I can share with you some of what those tips are.
Yeah, sure. I'm sure people are dialing the volume up right now because they're going to want to know, like, all right, so wait a minute, how do I find the right people that will stick?
Yeah. So the first one is, you got to kind of understand that it's a little bit about you, and we kind of believe in the law of attraction. Mm-hmm. And so, it's easy to blame millennials and Gen Z and people don't want to work hard anymore and whatever. And the more you can kind of get that out of your head and say, well, what is it about me and my ad and what am I doing that's not attracting the right type of people, the better position you're going to be to actually become solutions oriented. Right. Mm-hmm. And what we talk about is trying to represent who you are and the types of people that you're looking for, not just the tasks that they're going to do or the skills that are needed, that are going to attract the right type of people that are going to be long-term team members and have a career within your organization. So we challenge people like, do you have organizational core values? Do you have a vision and a mission statement? And if you don't, then we challenge people to actually sit down and figure out what those are. So we have our 7 core values of the types of individuals that we're looking for. And then we build out all of our job ads around the types of people we're looking for, not I need you to work this many hours a week and clean this many teeth and and we found that when our job ads become value oriented, the types of people that are attracted to working at a place where they want to be around good people and they want to be around people that are like-minded and have good culture, they're going to start to be attracted to ads that are that way. Mm-hmm. And so the first thing is you got to know who you are to start to represent the type of people you're looking for. So
at a minimum, it makes for a better interview at a minimum.
100%,
so more values-based conversations, right?
Totally. And so that's what we talk about, is that's really the first step. You got to figure out what you want to be about and the types of people that you're looking for. Now, once you have that, you're equipped to actually take some practical steps towards finding and approaching the right type of people. And you know what you're looking for, so that when the resumes start to roll in, or when the interview starts to happen, those questions are geared around what that looks like. And there's practical things that you can do to start to increase your funnel. So simple things that you can start to do tomorrow are like, do you have an employee referral package? So if you hire a hygienist and you say, do you know of any other hygienists that are looking for a job because I need one, I'll gladly give you $500. I'll gladly give you $1,000 if you refer somebody to come work for me and we end up hiring them. And we end up staging those payments out over date of hire, 90 days and year marks so that there's some longevity to that.
Yeah.
But like your team members can be a great source. I mean, your team members hate working with bad people even more than the doctors.
Yeah, they're probably the best source, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
So that's like every time somebody comes to work for us during their week boot camp, which we call it, that's a question we ask. Hey, do you know of 3 people in the industry that if we were to call them and talk to them about an open position, if we used your name, would they take our call? Could you write them down on this piece of paper here? And maybe we don't need that spot now, but maybe we might need it 6 months from now. And then we can call them and say, hey, Taylor gave me your number or Megan gave me your number. And I wanted to speak with you about an open position because she thought you might be a good fit here. So having an employee referral program and process. One of the biggest things that's out there is if you go to Indeed.com, there's a candidate search feature. So most people, they use the post and pray where I can actually post a job ad and then hope that my inbox fills up. But there's a candidate search feature, which you can actually look and see. And Indeed does a good job of anytime somebody updates their resume, it like timestamps that. And then it also does it based on geography. So if I'm looking for a dental hygienist, I can pay an extra $100 to Indeed. And I can say, I'm looking for anybody that has dental hygienist on their resume. And I want to look for anybody that's updated their resume in the last week, day, month. You can sort it by time
career
period.
disturbance is so relevant.
Oh, right now it's the turnover is, we call it the occupational musical chairs that's happened since COVID, where people have decided that, I've done one career for the last 10 years, but now I'm going to take it as an opportunity to go in a different direction. Right. And so this musical chairs and, if inflation happens or other things start to take off, all of a sudden the music's going to stop and people are going to then have to sit down in the new place that they're at. And you want to make sure you're well positioned within that, field to make sure you're going to be able to hire the right people. So, you can actually search not only when is the last time they updated their resume, but then you can draw like radius of distance based on zip code or city. So I can see, has any dental hygienist updated their resume on Indeed within 20 miles of my zip code in the last week? And now I can see who they are, and I can actually send them my job posting and a message out to them to say, hey, we have a job opening. You look like you might be a good fit. If you're interested, here's our thing. And we'd love to hear more from you. Now you're being proactive in the recruiting process and not just waiting for them to reply. Because if you put yourself in the eyes of the candidate, if you're a hygienist looking for a job, there's literally, we're in Southern California, so we have like a dentist every other block, right? So there's literally 100 opportunities that they have within 20 miles. So I have to be a little bit more proactive. And so a lot of them are like, I was just considering looking for an opportunity, but I wasn't ready to start applying. But I just went in and updated my Indeed resume just one day, but I didn't have the balls really to get started on actually applying. But now that my inbox is filled with an invitation to come and apply, maybe I'll actually look into this office to see if they're a good opportunity or not. Right.
And they probably look you up real quick, right? So I've been on your website, which is very pristine, it's clean. It looks inviting. Totally. Like if I'm a hygienist, I go on there, everybody looks happy. Like I might, so.
And that leads me right into my next thing, which is, so you want to do that, and you can do the same thing through LinkedIn as well. It's a little bit more of an organic process where you have to build out your connections, because the only people that you can reach out to, you have to have like 3 degrees of separation of Kevin Bacon or whatever that game's called, right? Where like you have to have enough mutual connections to reach out to people, but you can still look at hygienists within a certain geographic distance or your main, metropolitan area, and start to reach out to them as an opportunity. Okay. But then what we talk about is people, we think that people make decisions about finding their dream job in terms of how much does it pay? What are the hours? What are the benefits? You know, kind of like when we think about when we're shopping for a car, right? Like, what is the miles per gallon? What is the safety rating? But when we really think about the big decisions that we make in life, they're much more emotionally based, right? So when we buy a car, we think about, you know, how cool am I going to look when I pull up to my friend's house? Or like, how awesome am I going to feel when I get to drop the top and take a spin around the mountains? Or how fun is it going to be to punch this thing off the line when the light turns green? And those are the decisions that we tend to make on these big emotional decisions. And so when we are trying to appeal to candidates about a dream job, you know, I know the questions that they're asking may seem like they're concerned about hours and pay and those types of things. And I'm not suggesting that you don't need to be competitive in that realm to make sure that you get good people, but you want to try to appeal to people on an emotional level about, if you come to work for my organization, how is it going to affect your life in a positive way that you are going to feel fulfilled, that you're going to be surrounded by like-minded people, that you're going to go home happy and be a better mom, a better spouse, a better individual. And you're going to get to affect people's lives in ways that are going to make you feel fulfilled. I mean, when you look at all the things that people say about millennials and the different gens about what they're looking for in a workplace, you got to kind of work backwards from that. Mm-hmm. And so what we try to do is we've actually put together, we have several hiring videos. So if you go to our careers page of our website, which is another tip, how many of you have a careers page of your website? But we have videos which have our own team members in their own words talk about what it's like to experience working within our organization and how much fun they have with the people that they work with. And we have patients talking about how when they've come and seen us, we've impacted their lives. And you kind of reverse engineer the process of allowing potential applicants to see, if they start to envision themselves, okay, I could see myself working with them, and I know that I would be fulfilled in these areas of my life, and that emotionally I'm starting to connect with being a part of this office. Because the likelihood of them having like 15 different interview opportunities is high if they're actively searching. And you want to make sure that if they're not going to skip, and you know, too many of us have had people that have RSVP'd to a job interview only to have that person stand us up, right? And so we want to make sure.
Right. Who are you hiring? The person that shows up.
Totally. And so we do things like, I want to start to build a video that makes it emotionally connect with the applicant, so that now they go, okay, I might miss 2 job interviews this week, but I'm not going to miss that one office because I've started to see and connect with those people and feel like, okay, I could see myself there. Yeah. So you kind of just have to reverse engineer that emotional connection with people.
So as what maybe on the surface, it might seem like they want, hey, I'm going to come in and talk about pay, and you're highlighting that in your job post, right? It's pay that, but so is everyone else.
Well, when you go to shop for a car, like if you agree to my stipulation that that's emotionally why you buy a car, right? You would say, like, when you go to the dealer, you're not asking them like, how does it feel to punch it off the light? Like or like, do you think my friends will think that I'm really cool when I pull up in this car? But the questions you're asking are, what's the warranty on this? And, but really that's not what you're basing.
That's not super important. Yeah.
No, that's not what you're basing your decision on. I mean, it might have to have a certain miles per gallon because you don't want to pay through the roof, but as long as it's within, a certain, range of what you're hoping for, like, you're not going to base a decision on, I'm going to buy a car because it gets 31, but this one only gets 28 miles per gallon. Like, if it's in a range, then you're happy. And now it's a little bit more about what are some of the other emotional connections that you may have.
So, well, I love what you just shared. And so I want to give a little bit of recap, some tips and tricks. So, and these are like, you can implement these today. So it's an employee referral program.
Yep.
I would almost say making sure, because I'm sure maybe some dentists have tried them, but maybe they let it go. It didn't work that time. Well, maybe you didn't incent the right behavior. right? So
yeah, the thing is, like, it's not always going to work. It's not a silver bullet, which is why we have like probably 15 different solutions, like what you're talking about, because everybody thinks that like, okay, all the good applicants are actually hiding out on this one job website. And now I'm going to give you the secret key. And when you go there, all your hiring problems are going to go away. Like, no, you have to deploy 15 different strategies at the same time. And one time, one way is going to yield a good candidate, and another time, another one is. But if you're going to try to grow and scale at a certain rate, this is going to be your biggest pinch point.
It's the consistency of multiple channels.
Totally.
That'll drive that. And so we had the employee referral program, dialing up your Indeed subscription, or at least being very specific on your filters. And again, the time to do it, delegate it, train somebody how to do it. You do it once, spend an hour at night, and then delegate it to someone who can handle it. And then also making sure that you're connecting emotionally on a level with candidates through values-based, either increasing your post, like updating your post,
Yep.
Where it's not just a copy paste, but more meaningful to you, your practice, and what you guys are about. Those are 2 or 3 things, maybe 4, I think, that people can implement right now.
Yeah. I'll give you 2 more just as a quick value add. I won't take too long.
No, you're good. You're good.
The other thing is, like, if you're looking for a position that needs to be registered with the state, the likelihood that they have to have a license, that's public information. So what you can do is more than likely, you can go to your state website. You can download a file. You used to have to pay for it. Now in California, we wouldn't even have to pay for it. We can just download all the latest licensees in the state, and they have their address on file. So you can sort by city, state, zip code. So now I literally have a database of all the different hygienists that are within my, 10-mile radius of my office. Now I can create a letter that says, hey, I'm looking for a dental hygienist. If you know of anybody that's looking for a position and you send them my way, I'll give you a finder's fee.
Oh, wow. Okay. So not offering them, in a way, you kind of are.
So here's the deal. So you already get the trick, right?
Yeah.
Truth is, that person more than likely is going to apply if they're not happy with their position.
Right.
But now I have a little bit of plausible deniability next time I show up at the local study club that I wasn't trying to poach their employees.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah. No, it said if they know somebody.
Totally. I was like, I wasn't trying for her. It's not my fault she's not happy. So you have a little bit of deniability, and I will pay out the finder's fee if they do send me somebody. Yeah. But at least now you can blanket your local area for RDAs, hygienists, even associate dentists. And then another one would just be, let's see, which one should I go with? Yeah. The other thing is just, there are a lot of awards out there. So if you're thinking about it from a candidate perspective, you're going through Indeed, you're literally looking at 60, job postings that more or less look similar, right? So what is it that you can do to make your job posting stand out? And there are a number of awards that are out there that you can and should be applying for from an office perspective that you can then include within the first 2 or 3 sentences of your job posting that allow you to stand out. So, some of the awards that we have won we've been named to the Inc. 5000 fastest growing companies. We've been named to Orange County Business Journal's best places to work the last 5 years. We've been voted best dentist in our city the last however many years. And I'm not saying that I'm very proud that we've earned those distinctions, but the main reason why we continue to apply for those and spend a little bit of time and money in that process is solely so that in that second, third sentence of my job posting, I can list that so that now when an applicant is reading down, okay, what is this job posting about? That's going to give them just a slight moment of pause to go, oh, this is interesting. I haven't seen this one before. Let me take an extra 2 minutes to read more about this one. Whereas the other last 10 job postings that I look through, I just breeze through quickly.
Absolutely. No, that makes sense. And I think you're just hitting it on a different level. It's very easy for the candidate to apply for jobs, but they're filtering. It's first impression. They're filtering, they're applying to all of them, hoping for a few calls. But they're probably going to show up, to your point, to the one that they connected with the most through, just recognition. So that post is your first impression to them. And it's almost like a well, we'll just post this and, like you said, hope and pray that we get the right person here. But that is your company's it's Shoreline Dental's first impression to bring somebody on.
Totally. And so our book and our hiring solution that we have, there's a couple of different options for people to purchase. One would be the workbook with our digital suite of forms that they get. So it's our copy of what we use for our job postings, what we use for all of the different solutions and more that I've already talked about, that you could put in the hands of your office manager and say, I want to start implementing some of these solutions, and they it'll actually coach them through putting these in play. Like, where do you find these awards, and what is the letter that you would send out to local people that are on your local lists? What does that look and sound like? Well, here you go. We've already done it. Here's what we've used in the past. Those types of things are all there in the digital suite that they can purchase, that would allow them to start to implement these plays. And then if they're looking for an upgraded version, we've actually recorded digital lessons that we've recorded on video, that actually show them how they literally would walk through the Indeed website and figure out the candidate search process. So it's click here and then, that type of thing, so that they can understand how to implement some of those tactics to find better team members. Because, the thing that we talk about at Shoreline Dental that is our success is, we look for people that know and understand what our mission is and what the vision that we have for the company is. And we look for people that are willing to kind of partner with us in that journey. And the only reason we've been able to scale is because we've been able to find these types of people. And they've earned the trust that they have for us to be able to delegate so many of the processes that we have. And if we're not able to find the right type of people that fit the vision, that fit the values that we have for our practice, then we're not going to be successful. And all of a sudden we're going to turn back into those micromanagers that we fear that we could become and sometimes are at our worst selves.
Just a wealth of information you just dropped. So I'm just thinking about so many things, and I want to recap a little bit. But first, I'm thinking about, like, at the end of the year, as you're familiar, probably maybe even done this in your practice, but at the end of the year, so many dentists, like, it's December, I need a tax deduction, let's buy a piece of technology, right? Mm-hmm. It's somewhere, it could be like 10 grand, it might be 120 grand. And they're looking for that deduction. But I'm thinking, if you can take that investment, hire a COO or hire someone in the operations side. And I'm not, that doesn't mean I'm not trying to diminish your role. Your role is so gigantic. I'm trying to actually say your role is even that important, that if you're a solo dentist running a private practice and taking on all these duties, and it's just you and your office manager, you're so instrumental to your business. And now you and Kristen have a partnership to grow versus one person always trying to drive it. I just think it's such a important investment, and it not only financially could have, help you grow, but just mentally, right? The pressure and stress of being able to having to do all those duties. So do you feel like you guys are able to pull that away from each other, right? Like, not all on one person. So I just think about that dentists have that opportunity.
I mean, you have to trust in your ability to be able to find the right person. I mean, we obviously married one another, so there's a certain level of trust with literally my money is her money and vice versa. But our executive director, Emily, who has, I'm actually don't get involved in the day-to-day hiring anymore. I helped put this system in place, but now I've passed this along. So our last two new hires, I met them on their third day of work. Because she took all these things, she puts them in place, and I've delegated that. That's her responsibility. But there are people that are out there that if you trust in your ability to find the right person, and then it's not just necessarily even finding the right person, but it's, are you willing to, convey exactly what your expectations are, and then be willing to hold them accountable and have hard conversations when it might not be looking, sounding, and feeling the way that you had it envisioned in your head.
Yeah.
And do you have the people skills to be able to have those communications in a way that inspires the person to be better versus shut down or get defensive or whatever? And so if you possess those skills, then that's out there. And I would encourage people to start to think outside the box as to what would it look like to add that type of, we make the argument similar to what you said when we go around the country and do these lectures, which is you'll spend X to go and learn how to place implants. And yet the team that you have around you, if you could close your eyes and picture the best assistant, the best hygienist, the best front desk person that you've ever had, and if you could clone that individual, how much would you pay, or what value would that add to your life? Right. Yet we don't spend any time and we don't spend any money figuring out how to clone those individuals.
Right.
Maybe they've, Stockholm syndrome us into thinking that they're unicorns, but the truth is there are people out there that are like them.
Yeah, there's a lot of people out there. Yeah, there is great totally. Talent out there.
So like the amount of time and energy that you would spend to go and learn how to place a better implant, if you would take that time and money and repurpose it into your organization as to how to refashion finding more unicorns or finding more Marys or Susies or whoever that person is in your head that you envision when I ask you to close your eyes and do that, that's a way better use of your time in my mind, because once you have more Marys, then you can go to that implant course a year from now. And when you come back from that implant course, things are actually going to get implemented properly because you have the team and the support staff to say, yeah, doc, whatever you want us to do, we'll go ahead and do it. And you try and reverse it. You try to reverse engineer it the wrong direction.
Well, so Cory, obviously you can go to the website. I want you to restate the website, but how do people get in touch with you guys? I'm sure as you guys are broadcasting this a little bit. So help us with the book, the website, or just best ways to get in touch with you.
So it's buildyourdentaldreamteam.com. We do coaching calls with myself and or Emily, my executive director.
Okay.
Those we may offer at various times. We may offer some complimentary coaching calls for people that would want to spend 30 minutes to an hour with us. But we also do paid coaching calls. So if somebody feels like, hey, I'm going to attack some of these based on what I heard off this podcast, and I just have a few questions, then they can purchase those there on the website. Otherwise, They have the solutions there, and we would ship out our guidebook and give you a digital code to download those forms and the vault of documents that they would be able to use to start to implement in those practices. And then myself and or Emily, we occasionally will travel to local. I know you go to a lot of the AACA study clubs and have spoken on that level. And my wife has been involved with that organization. So we are mostly traveling and doing a lot of local study, or, nationally, we're doing their local study clubs to talk about the solution and a few other things. So that's pretty much how we make myself available, as well as Emily, but for the most part, busy running a big dental practice here. That's so true. That obviously takes the majority of the focus.
So we'll drop a link in the show notes for those of you listening. Is available on all podcast platforms. So we'll drop that in there. And Cory, we just appreciate you sharing so much, like a wealth of knowledge. You didn't have to give all that away, and you did. And it just shows that both you and Kristen think with an abundant mentality, and that is just organic growth. When you think abundantly, you kind of organically grow, and it seems to be the case with both of you. And so, any final words you want to share with?
I appreciate you saying that. I mean, all this is just, you can give away all the knowledge, but it's just whether or not you possess the time, the energy, the grit to actually start to put it in place. So we're pretty much an open book. We try to format it in a way that makes it digestible for people and allow them to kind of leapfrog or shortcut some of the heartaches that we've suffered along the way. But hopefully, if you've written some things down after listening to this, that this would start to make a difference. And ultimately, like, the last thing that I want to do is go to a dental conference or a dental meeting or be with other dental professionals and have people kind of complain or whine or slam the people that they're working with. And I want to just, the hope would be that people would start to see that there are a lot of good people that are out there that do want to partner with you in this process of making the dental field, the dental profession, a better place, because it's already hard enough with patients fearing coming and potentially having employees that aren't that much fun to be around. That hopefully we've created a system that we feel like has given so much back to us. And we love the 40 people that we work with. We're so grateful for what they've enabled us to do, not just giving us time and margin in our day to be with our family, but also just affect so many people in our local towns' lives. And I would hope that when people are surrounded by the right people, that would be the attitude that they would have about the people that they work with.
Absolutely. Well said. And Cory, thank you so much again. And for all the Bridge Dental podcast listeners, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Play it back a few times. There's a lot of information in here. And we'll hope to catch you next time and listen in soon. Thank you.